don't know. I think he's got family. You look like you lost weight. Good for you.
Working on it again. Yet again.
Well, you'll get there.
Good morning, everybody. Try again. Here. Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. Can you open this for me? Thank you. No strength anymore. Thank you. Appreciate that. He's going to try to make it to Minyan. Okay, Chevre. Friends. Shabbat Shalom. Boker Tov. Oh, good answers. Norman's not here, huh? So I want to do a Misha Barach for Norman. No, he's not in the hospital. He's in rehab. Okay, even before, he's in rehab. Even before we start our Shabbat blessings, I don't know if Norman, if you're watching, but a Misha Barach for Norman. May God heal him soon. May he return to full strength. May he sit in his proper seat and share Torah with us. And may we all share Torah and love and companionship and friendship with him. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, healer of the sick. And we say, Amen. Although he's doing a lot better, he's not so sick, but he needs to gain his strength. So look at that. We started our morning with a mitzvah even before our first mitzvah of Kiddush. So we're one mitzvah ahead, 99 more blessings of the day, and we are free. And luckily, we are starting early today. So, Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash ve'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. I know, when this grape juice is fresh, when it's fresh, it's good. And this brand is not too sweet. It's really good. Okay, so blessing for studying Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Amen. So we are in Parashat Shoftim, Judges. It's all about setting up laws, and we're going to be talking about a section which we were discussing a little bit Wednesday night in my Torah Tonight class. Annabella was there, and Nancy, Carol, Paul, who brought up the question, is now not in the room. But there was something that was bothering us, and so I thought we would play with that text again this morning and see what we can do with it, because it's not as much as troubling as puzzling and saying, what really is going on here? And since that's what we try to do this morning, we take a piece of text, what really is going on? And of course, as I always say, it ain't necessarily so, meaning, I hope you get the Porgy and Bess reference, but besides that, meaning that, boy, we have a lot of ideas, and we're going to try to figure that out. So I overly prepared text for us, so I don't know if we're going to get to all the text, but you'll take it home and you look at the rest. So we'll see how far we get, because it was, yes. Oh, I have lots of copies here. Thank you. There you go. Anybody comes in? Okay. So we're going to just look towards the beginning of the portion, and then we're going to jump into the second triennial. But to set the stage, we're going back to the famous part. So where we still, I should tell you what it is. Page 1456. Page 1456. This portion starts at Deuteronomy 16:18. Paul, you missed it, but I said we're studying today what we talked about Wednesday, because we were trying to figure that out. Yeah. Should we leave them in the back? Thank you. So we're just going to read this one verse, 16:18. Yeah, ready.
You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements the Lord your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with due justice.
All right, there's our idea. What does Nahama Leibowitz say? The next, read the next
Law
one.
must be administered and executed by the institution whose establishment is mentioned at the beginning of our Sidra.
Okay, so this is the goal of Shoftim, of judges, right? So we should appoint magistrates and officials for the tribes and all the settlements. So what are we doing? We are establishing some way of doing stuff, which involves law, which involves executing justice, right? Administering and executing justice. That's the job of this section, and it's going to talk about a whole bunch of different areas in which we have to be concerned with administering justice. Jump ahead, everybody. Now you go to page 1466. And we're going to start to read from chapter 19, Deuteronomy, Devarim 19, 1 through 7. And then we'll stop, and then we'll do the next part to maybe give us an idea of what this means. And we're going to have to be probably a little interactive like we always are. So, reading, why don't you read like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Annabelle can do 5, 6, 7.
When the Lord your God has cut down the nations whose land the Lord your God is giving you, and you have dispossessed them and settled in their towns and homes, you shall set aside 3 cities in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. You shall survey the distances and divide into 3 parts the territory of the country that the Lord your God has allotted to you, so that any manslayer may have a place to flee to. Now this is the case of the manslayer who may flee there and live, one who has killed another unwittingly, without having been his enemy in the past.
Thank you. Pass the mic. 5, 6, and 7. We could sit closer together. It's an option. It's an option, just saying. 5, 6, 7, Annabella.
Or who will come with his fellow into the forest to hew trees, and his hand swings the axe to cut the tree, and the iron slips from the wood and finds his fellow, and he dies. He shall flee to one of these cities and live, lest the Redeemer of the blood will chase after the murderer, for his heart will be hot, and he will overtake him, for the way was long, and he shall strike him mortally, and there is no judgment of death upon him, for he did not hate him from yesterday and before yesterday. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall separate 3 cities for yourselves.
Okay, Annabelle, that is like the hardest translation ever. That's always what you read from? Yes. Okay, wow. Okay. I'm already confused, and I've studied this for, 7 days already. Okay. So what's happening here in the simplest form? First of all, look at the story. So here's the example. It's from a Roadrunner cartoon that he takes the axe and he's going to chop wood, and up it flies, the top flies off and hits somebody and kills them. So half of you, 3/4 of you are attorneys, so you know where that falls, and where it even falls in the Torah is the same. So this is an accidental death. It's a products liability claim, correct? So certainly, the man wielding the axe is not at fault here. It's products liability, but he was holding the axe, and the family of the one who was killed is now pretty angry. And before we have this really good sense of how we're supposed to administer and execute justice, people take justice into their own hands. What I find so interesting about this text, thousands of years old, there was an attempt, a really good one, and I think that much of society has now figured out ways, not perfect ways, but ways to administer and execute justice. But in many parts of the world, the avenger is still operating. So can you imagine what it would have been like without having these laws and texts, without God telling Moses that this is how it must be? Can you imagine if there was nothing set in place, if there are still people out for honor killings and for vengeance? There would really be cray-cray, as my kids say, crazy. So let's look at Adine Steinsaltz. Our commentators this morning, Adine Steinsaltz, the modern Talmudists who just passed the last few years ago. Rashbam, who else? Chizkuni, our regular group, but we don't really look at Adin Seinfeld too much, but he has a lot to say about this, and so I've included him a lot. Joe, bavakasha.
The punishment for murder is limited, but not negated, but the existence of cities of refuge. This is a matter of the murderer. He shall flee there and live. He, the murderer, who is protected by a city of refuge, is the one who will kill his neighbor without knowledge, premeditated intent, and he does not hate him previously. Rather, the unfortunate incident was a complete accident. In many cases where someone kills his enemy, even if there is no evidence that he did so intentionally, presumably it was not completely unwitting. There is no asylum for a murderer under those circumstances.
Okay, so he jumps ahead. And by the way, so a lot of what gets confusing is they use the word murderer for both those who have, for a manslaughter and for premeditated murder. So we have to read them carefully. Again, if you've killed somebody unwittingly, you could go to one of these 3 cities of refuge. What we read in the beginning of the text was make sure these cities are close enough that someone can escape to before they're killed by the blood avenger. That's why first there'll be 3, then there'll be another 3. You have to measure the distances so people can get there. Because what's the point of having a city of refuge if people can't use it? So here, they're not innocent. They're not innocent. They've done something. It's not ignored, and they're sent to the city of refuge. Now, we call it a city of refuge, but it's really what? It's really exile. It's a sanctuary, but it's banishment, right? It's exile. So they have their life, but they're separated. There is later commentary that if a Torah scholar had to go to a city of refuge, his rabbi went with him. So I didn't include that one because it didn't really match, but his rabbi went with him to teach him. And if he was a great rabbi, his whole yeshiva and students went with him, which sort of seems not to be the point, because the other commentators are saying it's a city of refuge, but it is still an exile. So it's not negated. There is a punishment. Your life is saved, but there is a punishment. All right. So let's look at verse 5 again. So we have now is the killer. He may flee there. Go back to the text. Go back to the text, Shelley. So it's on page 1467. Let's just look at verse 5.
For instance, a man goes with his neighbor into a grove to cut wood. As his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, the axe head flies off the handle and strikes the other so that he dies. That man shall flee to one of these cities and live.
Okay, so now the rabbis, let's read the Rashi. Now the rabbis are thinking, what really happened? What's the crime? And now, Joe, this is really about the product, I think. Bill, you want to read the Rashi?
Some of our rabbis say that this means that the iron axe flew off from its handle, but some of them say that it means that the iron made a splinter of wood fall off from the tree, which was being chopped, and it sprang off and killed him. Okay, so maybe the iron flew off and hit him, but maybe he hit it and he did it in such a way, also negligent, where the piece of wood flew off the tree and killed the guy behind him. So there's another way of looking at it. Let's read what the Rashbam says. We're on the top of page 2.
The scenario described by our verse is that the axe, while hitting the wood, it splits, sends a piece of that wood sailing through the air with fatal consequences for the victim it hits. This is clearly something that was entirely unplanned by the person swinging the axe.
Okay, so both Rashi and Rashbam really want to make it clear, that this is manslaughter, that this is a mistake. And the reason they're making this clear is because they want to it's going to get tricky when we get to the man who premeditatedly killed somebody who was his enemy. And so where they really want to show that this was clearly an accident. With an accident, you are still punished, but your life is saved. Building it up more and more to show that the blood avenger really should not be a blood avenger, because there's nothing he could have done except sued the axe company. But before that, the guy holding the axe, there's nothing he did. It was a real crazy accident, and they want to support that. All right, question so far about our axe. Yeah.
Doesn't this sound a little bit like the Yiddish words shlemiel and shlemazel? I mean, the shlemiel is the guy with the bad axe, and the shemazel is the guy
He gets hit.
and he gets killed.
It's funny. Yeah, the shlemiel bought the wrong axe, or is not a good wood chopper. Okay.
Didn't check his axe.
Didn't check his axe. There we go. There we would really get into. I'm learning so much about law since my oldest daughter is now really involved in cases. I'm learning so much about propellers and ice on the floor and drinks in people's hands and all kinds of things. The shlemiel and the shlemazel. Slides that are not marked. Okay. Let's verse 6. We're talking about let's read verse 6 again, and then we're going to go on to the commentaries on verse 6.
Otherwise, when the distance is great, the blood avenger, pursuing the manslayer in hot anger, may overtake him and kill him. Yet he did not incur the death penalty, since he had never been the other's enemy.
Okay. Now, the blood avenger killed the man, but he didn't get the death penalty, right? So when the text says he didn't get the death penalty, means what? He was innocent, but what else? What happened to show that he was innocent? How do we know he was innocent? He didn't get the death penalty, means there must have been a court, there must have been a decision. Must have been a decision. Well, whatever it was, the court decided he wasn't guilty, right? He didn't get the death penalty, Torah says. The blood avenger was after him, but he didn't get the death penalty, the axe-wielding shlemiel. He didn't get it. He didn't get it, but now somebody's going to kill him. Make sure that your cities are close enough. Let's read.
Because his friend was not an enemy, not a friend, but the other person was not.
Right. So whatever reason, for all of those reasons, the court decided he's not guilty. He gets to go to the city of refuge, but he better run fast because there's somebody out to get him. Okay, so we have to deal with that. Let's look. What was that? You're saying he's in trouble. You're saying he may not make it. He may not. Let's see what Rashbam says on that verse. We have two discussions on verse 6.
The scenario described by our verse is that the axe, while hitting...
Wait. Oh, yeah, we did that one. The one underneath that.
Okay, these words refer back to the need to establish 3 such cities as outlined in verse 2. If there were to be only one such city of refuge, the avenger in his pursuit would be more likely to succeed.
Okay, so we are punishing the manslaughter, but we trying to save his life at the same time. Okay, let's see what Chizkuni says.
He says that while he was not deserving of the death penalty, this teaches that even an intentional killer who has not been sentenced to death by the court for some technical reason connected to the evidence, presumably, may still be subject to death at the hands of the blood avenger.
Oh, okay. So now we're getting into now we're getting into the weeds. So the accident, he's running to the cities of refuge. We're going to make sure they're close enough so the blood avenger doesn't have time to catch him and kill him. And now, well, maybe, and this is because the court has found him innocent. It's not like, uh-oh, there goes the axe, kill somebody. They found him not guilty. Thank you. Found him not guilty. He's not innocent because he killed somebody, but he's not guilty of murder, and the court has found him such. So he's able to go. Yes, Joe.
Is he presuming that the blood avenger has the right to do this?
Well, that's what we're going to be discussing. Yes, does the blood avenger? So this is the hard part, right? The one who's by accident, who, as we read, is able to get to the city of refuge because he was found not guilty for whatever reasons they deemed, as Paul said, maybe there were witnesses, all of those things. He's not guilty. He wins the prize of exile. But the intentional killer, we're going to get a study about him in a second. The intentional killer may have also gotten off on a technicality, and therefore he's going to exile. He's not getting the death penalty, because those are the choices. If you've killed somebody intentionally, death penalty. If it's an accident, city of refuge. So here somebody gets off, Chris Cooney is saying, may still be subject to death at the hands of the blood avenger. We have to figure out, we're going to figure out in the next two verses really what we're saying. Annabelle, do we need a mic? Let me see.
Here.
Thank you. Because our friends at home won't hear us.
Well, it's not that simple to up and go. You're moving to a different city, to a place that you don't know, to people that you don't know. By the time you find a house and settle,
Work, looking for work.
I think that your blood avenger has a good chance of catching up with you. You're uprooting completely a person. It's not that he takes his little suitcase that was prepared and goes to the next city. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. That may be one of the reasons for the distances.
So we have to watch that time gap. He's not guilty, he's able to go, but what's going to happen during that time of moving?
I'm looking at this and thinking, I was trying to figure out what possible technical reason there could be. And if someone kills in self-defense, potentially that person may have killed someone, but trying to protect his own life. So is he guilty of murder? He's guilty of killing someone. Perhaps this is someone who might be subject to being killed by an avenger, but should potentially be able to go to a city of refuge. I mean, where do you put that person?
So I think the Torah puts self-defense as not guilty. Yeah, not if it's self-defense, I think you're not if it's self-defense and you're found self-defense, you are not going to get the death penalty. If you don't get the death penalty, city of refuge. And also self-defense is not premeditated, even though it could be your enemy. This whole discussion of previously enemy is sort of murky, right? Who's to say what makes somebody the enemy? How enemy is an enemy? How much of an enemy is an enemy? Where is that on the continuum? How much do you hate that person? Oh, you hate him a little bit, you don't talk to him, or you hate him a little bit, you're going to kill him.
What other circumstances might there be? I'm just trying to figure out what evidence might presumably let somebody off.
Witnesses.
You need two witnesses, okay?
Witnesses.
And so if there were not two witnesses, he's not going to be found guilty, but this other person may actually have some knowledge that the guy actually did it. Perhaps, and the two witnesses, it says shnayim, meaning at the same time. So maybe there was a little time interval in between where one witness saw him strike the guy, and then maybe a few minutes later, this other guy saw him dying on the ground. They weren't at the same time, so technically they
They don't
cannot be
count.
convicted, but this other guy has knowledge, and therefore, he can.
So that's some of the legal technicalities. I'm not sure we have to worry about too much of the legal technicalities because we want to deal with what we do with the blood avenger. What are we doing with this blood avenger, and how do we change culture? We're trying to change the culture here, away from blood avengers to letting justice take its course, or letting justice work. And I think that's still one of the questions we have today. I'm going to here and then there. You want to say something, Amica?
No, I had a question, but I think that it ended up being a legal technicality.
Okay. Just for fun, how many people here have currently or in the past have practiced law? So we know. Okay, so a bunch of you. A lot of technicalities.
What about when somebody bypasses the court system or the legal thing that's set up and they just flee? Either they intentionally murdered somebody
We're
or
getting
not.
there. We're getting there. Thank you. That's the next verses. What if somebody just flees? Carol, you wanted to say something?
I think the key is intent. Did I intend to kill this person, or is it an accident? I also believe there is God. So even if you run away, it catches up with us. I don't think any one of us get off scot-free when it comes to God.
Okay. So Carol's bringing up that even if you get away with murder, in the big picture, Olam Hazeh, this world, or Olam Haba, you're not going to really get away with it. Is that what you're saying, Carol? In some way, you're not going to get away with it. Okay. Let's see. We're not going to deal with that big God picture now, but in Minyan, the Devar Torah will talk a little bit more about God in this picture, but not now. Let's go to, we're going to jump ahead to Deuteronomy verses 19, 11, and 12. I have the English here, so if somebody, you can read it in your book, or you can read it on the page. Whose turn is it? Stuart.
If, however, a man who is the enemy of another lies in wait and sets upon the victim and strikes a fatal blow and then flees to one of these towns, the elders of his town shall have him brought back from there and shall hand him over to the blood avenger to be put to death.
Okay, there's your answer. So, he's an enemy, he kills somebody, he strikes a fatal blow, and then he flees to one of these towns. The elders of the town shall be brought to death. Now, this was our problem this week. Why do the elders have the right? Was any due process here? Any due process? That's what we're going to be discussing now. That's what the commentators are going to discuss. He lies in wait. He kills them. It's premeditated. It seems as if he doesn't deserve those cities, and the blood avenger then puts him to death, or is ready to put him to death. Now what happens? Okay. Yes, Stuart.
I'm a little unclear on the definition of intent or of responsibility. If one, for example, drinks too much wine, they weren't driving a car drunk.
Right.
But I assume that wine and drink was a reasonable thing at that time, and that alters their mental state, and they kill somebody. They kill somebody that didn't even know. Where does innocence come there? Where does responsibility come there?
Yeah, so I don't know what the ancient courts did then. They would try somebody and see where on the spectrum of culpability was that person. Does that person deserve death penalty, or does that person deserve exile? Yeah, this text hasn't dealt with that. It talks about either it's an accident Or either, I hate that guy, I'm setting out to kill him.
It's an accident. There's some culpability.
Right, there's an accident, but there's accident with sort of knowledge of behavior which may lead to that accident. Correct. There is some responsibility. Erica.
That it seems that real intent is almost even whether the person is an enemy or not. So it's assuming in this case that because it's an enemy, to some degree it was intentional, but it's based on the subject. It's not based on the intent.
So Erica is saying seems to be an assumption. I think the text is going to unravel that a little bit. There seems by these words, and this is what bothered me this week, it seems like by the word enemy, it automatically means intention, right? The text does seem to say that. I think we're going to get to the point where we're going to see that what matters is how justice is administered. So even though the words here are saying, it seems like, clearly text says, he's an enemy, he killed him. Again, that ain't necessarily so, but the text is making that connection. I think the answer is going to be, if I jump ahead of my own text and we figure it out now instead of later, it seems like the answer is going to be that the how you execute and administer justice is going to be the key. That's what we're going to. Yeah, so be just, in this portion we have the line, tzedek terdov, justice pursue, and our understanding of that, or an understanding of that, is pursue justice justly. Also plays into that, yes.
But in a way, the justice is predicated by the facts and the interpretation. Justice is not something on its own. So I walk into a room and I see you do something. Before I can pass judgment or carry out a sentence or something, I have to understand the nuances of what happened. It's not just, I just don't say, I like Rabbi Klepi, I think she's innocent.
Correct, that's why we have the system of justice. That's why set up, right? That's why the first verse says, appoint magistrates, officials for your tribes, so we know what to do when we see something. We're coming out of the wilderness, right? Remember, we are in now Moses' final address to the Israelites. He's going to die. They're going to go forward with Joshua. So one generation is gone, next generation is up. We've been in the wilderness. We are watching those tribes around us. Those who this portion is going to say, we must get rid of them. Don't do what they do. Those are, I have my, one of the translations we have in Mishkan Tefillah of Hashkivenu is walk with good companions, and I always call that, when I see kids out in the congregation, that's the teenage prayer, the prayer for the teenagers, walk with good companions. And so the companions around, those teenagers are laughing. Your kid is the good companion the other kid should be walking with. That's the neighborhood. The neighborhood is wild, Torah is saying. They're going to be doing, when we read a little bit forward, they're going to soothsayers, they're throwing their kids into the fire to appease God, they're doing all this stuff. This is not our way of living. One of the things that they do is that anybody who kills somebody, we just kill them in return without going through justice. What we're trying to do now is appoint judges and magistrates and people to administer justice for your tribes. We're trying to move away from those guys and create something better, holy, godlike, purposeful.
We're trying to define justice here by our own actions.
We're trying to define justice by our actions.
The Torah is giving us some indication of what might be just treatment, but we have to figure out what justice really is.
Well, I think the Torah is going to tell you what justice really is. We have to understand how Torah wants us to administer it. We have to understand how Torah wants us to administer it in this setting.
Because when we talk about pursuing justice, what exactly is that? That's the message that God has given us, which is the right way to live, I assume. But, by example, we're seeing what is just and what is not just.
Correct. We could see a lot of parts in the Torah, which the Torah thinks of just, stoning people who have violated Shabbat, things like this, which we may not think is just. But we, again, inherit this in this idea of trying to stop vigilantes. We're trying to change that behavior, trying to get people to stop and look at intent and guilt or not guilty, or how guilty. All right, let's see. So the elders shall, we're looking at verses 11 and 12. We're on page 2 here. What does Rashi say about that? Right, the elders of the town, I've bolded verse 12 because that's the funky verse. I've bolded that, and let's see what Rashi says. We're at the bottom of page 2. The Rashi at the bottom of page 2.
But if a man hate his fellow and lie in wait for him, it is through his hatred that he comes to such a point as to lie in wait for him. From here they, the rabbis, derived their statement: if a man transgresses a light command, he will in the end transgress a weighty command, because he transgressed the command. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. He will in the end come to such a point as to shed blood. It is for this reason that it's stated here, apparently redundantly, but if a man hate his fellow and lie in wait for him, for it ought to have written only, but if a man rise up and lie in wait for his fellow and smite him mortally.
Okay, so what is Rashi saying?
Right.
Roadrunner Monty Python. What is Rashi saying? Rashi's bringing us to a little bit. I included this Rashi because I like it, but it's a little it moves away, it digresses a little bit from our point, and he brings in a Torah point for all times. Also, the 10 Commandments. What happens when you covet? Right? When you are jealous of somebody, it's going to lead to stealing. So this idea of hating somebody leads to something way more dangerous. And I could have done the whole lesson going that way, but that wasn't as troubling as the other parts.
Well, my issue here is, when you read it, the reason for the redundancy is that it brings to fore that actually it's okay to hate somebody. You don't have to love everybody. You can hate them. But you can't act on the, well, in this instance, what I'm talking about here. In this instance, it's okay to not be a friend of this person, to be, for whatever reasons you have, or even if you don't have any reasons. But to not act on those, because that will not only cause irreparable harm to that person or persons, but it's also going to destroy your soul also. That in hating and in acting upon the hate, not only are you creating chaos and harm to an individuals, you're doing it to yourself. And God wants us to take care of our souls to be more like God.
Okay, that's nice. And if you hate somebody, if you go to kill them, you're going to be killed too. That's also what's going to come out here.
I also heard that hate in and of itself is very dangerous. That the hatred itself is of utmost importance, not just the action. Because the hate leads to.
So the hate leads to the action. This is what Rashi's saying. This is what the rabbis are saying.
I'm a little bothered by the statement that if a man transgresses a light command, he will in the end transgress a weighty command. In a sense, that's condemning someone before the fact. And it means that, if you transgress a minor thing, there's no hope for you. And I really don't like
Teshuva.
that statement's bothersome.
God says to Cain, you see, I have a bat mitzvah girl working on this, or a bar mitzvah boy. God says to Cain, sin coucheth out the door, but you have the power to stop it. It's sort of that. It's
This
waiting
kind of-
for you.
Yeah, this kind of takes that power away from you in a sense legally. That because you were affiliated, you did something before, it was minor, you're going to be guilty in the future.
I think that's just the rabbis and Rashi's warning. It's the same. It's just their warning. I don't think I don't think it's certainly not preordained, because only God's going to preordain. But it's a big warning that this kind of behavior will lead to that. Yes, pass. Oh, which way? This way, and then I want you to look at the top of page 3.
So if you're not supposed to hate in your heart, and presumably you're not supposed to lust in your heart, you're supposed to be heartless?
So the answer to that is going to be at 11:15 this morning, when we talk about, what verse is it? I think 19, is it 18, 13, I forgot, where you should be wholehearted with God. That's the answer, tamim. That's going to be, but that's so if I say it now, then Ed and Annabelle and Paul and those who are staying, and Nancy for Minion, will already know the Devar Torah, but that's the Devar Torah at 11:15. So thank you. Let's look at the top of page 3. 1 second.
It's preordained.
It's preordained. What question do we ask about the text? All right. I've asked the question. I'm asking you, what question do we ask about the text? The text I want you to think about is, the elders of his town shall have him brought back from there, and shall hand him over to the blood avenger to be put to death. What questions do we ask about verses 11 and 12? Right? Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, let's do 11. Let me read also. Well, look at 11 and 12. If, however, a man who is the enemy of another lies in wait and sets upon the victim and strikes a fatal blow, and then flees to one of these towns, the elders shall have him brought back and hand him over to the blood avenger. What questions are we asking about this text? Okay, Joe says.
Has he been found guilty?
Shelley says.
Has he gone to court?
Right, okay. So.
You can't be found guilty
Bill?
without going to court.
And who's the blood avenger, and you're giving somebody over to somebody to
Kill him.
enact justice and kill him?
Right.
What's that?
That's the question we should be asking. What's that? What's that? What is it? Giving somebody over to be killed, and they're not going to be killed? Or is the blood avenger now work for our courts? What's that?
It's almost as if there is this right to a due process if you are not guilty. And if you are guilty, which is already assumed based on the subject, then you are not. There's like this duality to it, which is inconsistent.
Okay, so we feel as if Erica is asking, are we being inconsistent here? We're suddenly turning over. We set up these guys to administer justice, and now we're turning justice over to the blood avenger. What's going on?
I'm sure you'll answer that question, but I had another.
Not me, but these guys will.
Okay, I had another.
Okay.
It's the yin and the yang, and the corollary that I see between hate and fear. We're not supposed to hate because hate leads to murder. Murder is one of the big 10. The flip side of that is what is the corollary in the fear realm? And I'm taken to the saying that the only time that killing is allowed is that if you know in your heart that someone is coming to kill you, that you are commanded to rise and kill first. So in that instance, when you know in your heart that you are about to be killed, you are actually commanded to rise and kill first. the preservation of life in that scenario overrides. So I don't know how the system works into it, but there's absolution in that you get by rising and killing first, that you don't get if you hate in your heart on your own.
Okay, so there's a nice little splicing of the ideas. Again, we talked about up here, self-defense. If you know, if there is a rodef, somebody coming, a pursuer, you can kill them. But if you hate somebody, then you can't. Also, so what was the name of that show we watched? Alex and I watched it all the time with Lev Schreiber. He was the fixer guy. It was such a, yeah, Ray Donovan. Thank you. So on Ray Donovan, and the guy he worked for, was it Gould? What was his that fame? Anyway, he was the guy who always needed trouble. He said, Ray, there's a rodef. He's a rodef. And he taught Ray Donovan what a rodef means. The person who is pursuing to kill you, you can kill, except his understanding of a rodef person coming to kill you was somebody who's going to damage you financially or your reputation. He broadened it too much, but rodef was used in Ray Donovan. Just a little piece of cultural Jewish history. Somebody went to a Torah class and wrote it into that script.
There's two sides to every relationship, whether it's love or whether it's hatred. So the emotions you're feeling towards the other person, but also there's something that's happening inside of me. There's an adrenaline that is going through my heart that is not good energy, it's not good for me. And in the long run, it turns into some kind of disease because, it does, because it's not a good adrenaline. So everything comes at a cost. So if we're going to pursue someone in murdering them, I think one should think of the cost, because down the road, it creates illness, etc. I think it's something to think about.
So thank you. So the blood avenger, as the Torah says, he's so hot. If you're avenging somebody, you're not really, well, you're thinking only of the end goal is to avenge your loved one's death. Okay, so let's look at this Luzzatto, because we're trying to think of answering Bill's question. What's that? What's that about? Did this guy go to court? Was he judged? And how come the magistrates call in the blood avenger? How come? So let's see if Luzzatto answers. It's a long piece. Who's reading? Whose turn is it to read? Who wants to read? If you want to. We are at this big, long piece here, so go slowly, everybody. It's long, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find a place where to cut it. I did cut it a little.
In early times, before the establishment of a stable government under a king, princes, judges, and law enforcement officers, each family executed its own private vengeance, the next of kin of the murderer being obliged to avenge personally his death. The Torah appointed judges and officers and took vengeance out of the hands of individuals, entrusting it to the whole community. Now, when the murder was deliberate, it was conceivable to quiet the blood avenger by saying to him, "Leave it to the judges. They will investigate and bring him to justice if he is guilty." But when manslaughter was involved, it was not possible to quiet the blood avenger and force him to see the murderer of his father go unpunished, for that would be regarded by himself and his friends as if he was lacking in love towards his father in not avenging his death.
Okay, so we understand that. We're supposed to say, hang on, blood avenger. We're going to take care of this and put him through a court of law through the process. Keep going.
This attitude could not be eradicated all at once.
The attitude being, slow down, we're going to handle it. Okay, keep going.
Divine wisdom realized that if the blood avenger were punished by death for avenging the inadvertent slaying of his relative, not all, not even the majority of blood avengers would be deterred from wreaking vengeance for their relatives. In this way, unnecessary bloodshed would ensure would ensue, and the suffering and harm caused to a single family would be aggravated. For since one mischance had happened in the family, in one of its members being accidentally slain, yet another would suffer the death penalty for avenging his brother's death.
Okay, so the axe killed somebody. The blood avenger came and killed the man holding the axe, because otherwise his friends and family would say, you didn't love your father enough who was killed by that axe. The blood avenger, who then went and killed the manslaughterer, would be put to death because he had the intention. So now that family has lost not only the one killed accidentally, but also the one that went to avenge his death. Okay, endless feuds. Keep reading, please. It would also be, not be.
It would also not be improbable that when the blood avenger was being executed, the whole community would rise up against the judges, resulting in a national upheaval. What did the Torah therefore do? It allowed the blood avenger the privilege of avenging the death of his kinsman, but fixed a place of refuge for the murderer to flee, where the blood avenger could not reach him to slay him.
Wow. So now the blood avenger is guilty. He killed the one who was not guilty of murder, but through accident killed his relative. Now the court is taking the blood avenger and putting him to death. The community will not allow it because they have not yet moved to the point where blood avenging is wrong. They have not yet accepted the rule of law, and therefore there'll be an upheaval, and you cannot put to death the blood avenger. Yet. We're not there yet. Let's pass the mic to Billy.
Which is the whole point of the three cities, which is where we started, right? So you have now a place where somebody can live outside the community, and the blood avenger, which was the way justice used to be administered, can still live within the community while this person is exiled in one of the three cities.
Yes. The blood avenger, well, is he a blood avenger or he has not been? He would be the blood avenger, but he can't because the guy's now in the safe city.
It's a transition of justice, right? So justice was done one way, and now we're trying to transition somewhere else.
Correct. We are transitioning from the wilderness justice to the justice that God wants, where he says, appoint judges and magistrates. But it's not that easy to do. Okay, let's read the sign, so we're at the foot of page 3. Yeah, thank you, Erica.
But if there will be a man who hates his neighbor, and he ambushed him, and rose against him, and smote him mortally, and he died, and he, this intentional murderer, flees to one of these cities of refuge, where he is legally entitled to temporary asylum until he stands trial. Oh, hold on. Yeah. The elders of his city shall send and take him from there to face justice, and will place him into the hand of the blood redeemer to stand trial as demanded by the victim's relative, who seeks justice on his behalf, and he, the murderer, will die once his death sentence has been pronounced.
Okay, so we're back to where Annabella said, wait, but how does this person, if somebody runs to this city, or what's the time? So temporarily, right, while before his sentence, before his court appearance, he's placed there, he cannot be killed. He comes out to face justice. He is found guilty. He gets the death penalty. As I wrote, the court will make the ruling, but the blood avenger is the one used in this case to execute the justice. So this is like that stepgap. The blood avenger is now working on behalf of the court system if the person is found guilty of murder. Not, blood avenger can no longer kill somebody for manslaughter if they run away fast enough. The blood avenger will be guilty if he kills somebody for manslaughter, if the court's able to enact the justice on him, but the community so far it's iffy. But the blood avenger is the one used to execute the justice if the person is found guilty of murder. Jason, take the microphone from right behind you. Thank you.
And yet, the same tractate Sanhedrin, somebody mentioned rise and kill first, teaches us that the Sanhedrin declared that if one murder capital punishment were affected in one lifetime, that was one too many. So,
right.
Practically, where are we?
So just two. It's only Jews. So the question was, later on, did any Sanhedrin, right, they say it's a bloody court if 1 in 7 years the Sanhedrin gives somebody the death penalty. It's called the bloody court. Right, so we're still before then, but they still have the option to here. They're going to have the option. Now, look at this. I'm throwing in this Deuteronomy 13, which I'm going to talk about later. You must show him no pity. Thus you will purge Israel of the blood of the innocent, and it will go well with you. Who are we showing no pity to? Don't show any pity to the one who, read the Rabbeinu Bachya in 1913. Where are we, Ed? We're back to you.
Your eye shall not pity him, that you refuse to hand him over to the blood avenger. You should not argue, what is the point in another person being killed, seeing the first one cannot be brought back? This is one instance where pity is not only misplaced, but is a form of cruelty.
Wow. So now, he's already safe. We've saved him. Yes, he's guilty, but he's alive. Now you're going to kill him. You're going to have another person killed and another person killed. It just doesn't make sense. But don't show pity, because if you show pity, you're going to allow the evil to continue in your land. Don't show pity. All right, I never thought we'd get here to the end, but we did. Let's read the Ramban. Miller, bavakasha. It's Miller time. Huh.
Thine eye shall not pity him. This means that you shall not say, the first person has already been killed. Why should we kill him also, with the result that 2 people will be killed? This is Rashi's language quoting the Sifri. The meaning thereof is that you should not say, rather than having pity on the blood of the stain, it would be better to have pity on the blood of the living one.
Right, but so what Ramban is saying, you mean you pity the one who is guilty more than the one who has already been killed? Go ahead, Miller.
The correct interpretation of the verse is as follows. Scripture has command concerning those liable to death, so thou shalt put away the evil from the midst of thee. This being a positive commandment. But in matters of prevalent danger to society, he warned further with a negative commandment that the murderers not be spared from punishment at our hands, neither on account of fear of them, nor because we might show them mercy.
Aha. Very pro-death penalty, this section. Here's my question. What are the goals of the Torah regarding the cities of refuge? That's our final question to wrap up. What are the goals of the Torah regarding cities of refuge? Erica, counselor, go ahead.
I think that is to try to transition people from doing justice in their own hands into a judicial system. But because of what you were mentioning, that it takes time and people need to believe in it and give legitimacy to it, then it puts people really to protect them while that process takes on.
Thank you. So the Torah is trying to give legitimacy to this system of justice. We saw in the Luzado that if the society did not find that the way the court was administering justice wasn't legitimate, that they would rise up and create chaos. So the Torah is trying to figure out how do we create first the legitimacy and the laws, or the laws and the legitimacy. Alfred?
Along with that, we're living in a time of his writings where there were no police, where there were no prisons, there was no way to detain these people. And this is a solution. How do you produce a civil society where crimes occur? What do you do?
Okay, the beginning of producing, because we have this law, we have this Torah, but we're still getting used to it. It's still new to us. So how do we produce a civil society where there's law and that people will find that the law and the administration of justice is legitimate? And right in these verses, we see the pangs of creating that system. And that's why we went, what's this about? And so the blood avenger, the angry person avenging the death of a loved one, also becomes an arm of the court. And the cities are protection until, of course, there is a case. And one of the ways of judging, in addition to the two witnesses, which we see in other parts of the Torah, is also what is this intent. So there is a beginning to separate people being killed accidentally and being avenged, and the idea of murder, intentional murder, and punishment. So the Torah is trying to discern the difference and create something that's going to be seen as legitimate among the people. And remember, as they're moving through the neighborhoods and meeting the other folks who don't think like this yet. So, okay, that's our learning for this morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I wanted to show you this book. I'm about halfway finished.
Okay.
It's an incredible book. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, where he attempts to look back at the destruction of the temple, Masada, the whole series of wars that preceded and followed the destruction of the Second Temple, and put it into historical context, using a bunch of writings that most of us are not exposed to. A lot of the Romans, Tacitus, Suetonius, the others. And it's an excellent book. And it really takes a deep
Check, check, check.